Hello and welcome to the Road End podcast, where each week we will speak to a new guest, get to know them, and talk all things Liverpool.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Road End podcast. Today's guest has made over 570 appearances for both club and country. He scored over 100 goals so far. Welcome to the podcast, Netherlands international, Ryan Babel. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well, thank you.
I've followed your social media for a little while on me personal, and obviously I've started the podcast up now. I've noticed you're a very motivational person on the business side of your accounts, your clips, regular quotes, they're very inspiring. What's made you get into that side of things, the business side of things in life?
Well, actually, real simple. At one point, I turned 25. That was for me an age where I felt like, oh, this feels like I'm over half of my career. I always saw age 30 as in kind of like the end of your career. So I was like, oh my God, I've only 5 years. So I asked myself a simple question. I was like, hey, if football would have taken away from me today as a 25-year-old, how would I be able to provide for my family and myself? And after a long thought, I didn't have a straight answer. I did have certain wishes in terms of trying to maintain the lifestyle that I lived. And if you ask yourself what type of jobs are out there that could pay you potentially, let's say, a monthly football salary, there are really none out there.
Yeah.
So if you then trying to go look further, of course, start a business. But as a football player, most of the football players have never really studied business. Most of the football players never finished school. The only thing we really know is football. So it tends to be really difficult to come up with a solution that is not in your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, now you have to start get out your comfort zone and educate yourself of things that you're not aware of. And that's where I basically went into the rabbit hole, trying to find something out there that was not necessarily easy, but easy to learn, that would make sense for me eventually to execute, that could potentially also, where I could build my foundation with. Yeah. And at the end, send the targets that I have set myself to. And long story short, I end up reading Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that was for me the moment, that was for me the aha moment, knowing that, investing in real estate could be, let's say, the easiest answer. Of course, at the end of the day, you have to then, to be a real good real estate investor, it takes some knowledge and education to understand what is a good real estate investment, because the facts are that not all real estate is created equal. So you can lose money with real estate if you buy the wrong real estate. So that's where, of course, the education comes in. So basically that's the journey that I took. At one point, when I realized what real estate potentially had to offer, of course, passive income, a solid foundation of not having to stress if football would have taken away from me, I realized I wanted to share this knowledge with my colleagues that I knew who weren't really aware of the different ways of real estate investing. So that's where my motivation came about. I started a business page initially to inspire football players, right now it's fun to do. I've been doing it for a while, and I keep continue doing it.
So the real estate that you invest in, obviously we won't go into too much detail, but is that in Holland or is that pretty much anywhere?
It's mostly in Holland, Amsterdam. I've also invested some real estate in America, in Miami, but I keep myself educated. I know the UK also has great opportunities, great projects. Obviously London, but even Liverpool. Knowing from my time there, knowing more or less the different neighborhoods, I know there's great opportunity there to invest. And So, I do have, dreams and wishes to one day to see if that could be potentially something for me to look into. But yeah, right now, step by step, I keep it mostly in Amsterdam.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's talk about your football career. I've been reading through some of the honours that you've won, and it's not bad, is it?
Right.
Eredivisie twice, the KMV Cup twice, Johan Cruyff Shield twice,
Right.
Turkish Super League, Turkish Super Cup, and individually the Ajax Talent of the Year, the Marco van Basten Award. That must
Right.
have been a real privilege.
Yeah, for sure. It's at the moment I didn't realize, but a few years after I realized, also who won, those trophies, and yes, of course, it's an honor.
So you're currently playing in Turkey.
Yes,
I'm not
still
quite
playing
sure
Turkey.
how to announce the team's name, if you can do that.
You would pronounce it as Eyupspor. Yeah,
Eyupspor, okay.
yeah,
And they're located in Istanbul.
in Istanbul. Yeah,
And how's life
yeah,
in Istanbul?
yeah. I've been here now quite a while. It's my fourth team in Istanbul, to be honest. Yeah, at one point, even though I feel great, I do realize age comes into play where teams, don't really necessarily find you interesting enough, and obviously they choose you for younger players, which I understand. I've been a young player once, and I could feel, of course, the desire from teams more compared to the older teammates that I had at that time. So I know how it works. Yeah, this team was the only team after I, became a free agent after 3 years of Galatasaray that was able to offer me a 2 years contract, which my wish was. I was able to go abroad in different territories, but they all offered me 1 year, and I wanted to at least have 2 years to still, settle and really feel part of a team and not be temporary only there for a year. So the good thing about this is not having to move. My family's still here. Not really have to adapt to a different type of culture. And that's why I chose to play for this team. They're in the second league. They have the aspirations to go up. Currently, we are first with 2 points difference with number two. We're doing pretty well. We have a good team. They've invested a lot in this project. The president has a good vision. And yeah, for me, a different challenge, to help a team promote. And yeah, that's a different type of, challenge compared to, the teams that I've played for in the past.
Yeah, so you've been at many big clubs. Would you say that the experience you have from the clubs that you've been at is helping this new project?
Absolutely. And of course, experience and overall, me being in the game for quite a while now, understanding how the game have to be played. Yeah, I try to have my addition to the team and the group of players that we have. They give me the responsibility. They made me the first captain, so an honor, of course, to be a captain anywhere. Doesn't matter where you play. It's a privilege to be, leading the team on the pitch. And yeah, so I know what my duties are, and it's a great challenge.
Perfect. So how's fitness?
Yeah, fitness is good. I actually just came back from a small knee injury. I was lucky to not do my ligament in the first match of the league. But I was out for like 7 weeks. I had a grade 2 on the inside of my knee, so it took me out for a little bit. But I'm back now. I've played now the second game since being back. We played yesterday. Sorry, 2 days ago. We won 4-0 at home, so that was a good game from our side. But yeah, for my age, you would be surprised. I would still have the runs you would expect as a winger.
Yeah, well, you've always had a bit of pace. So how's the pace now?
Yeah, I mean, I have to work a little bit harder for the pace, but I mean, I cannot complain. I still feel pretty confident. I still have, the confidence to smack the ball behind a fullback and take on the run. If I, what you often see with players who were known for being fast, if they feel like they cannot really do it, they change their game a little bit. And I definitely have changed my game, but I still have that weapon, and there where I maybe Used to do it 10 times, being 20 years old. Now I do it maybe 4 or 5 times, but then the right way. So you become smarter as you grow older.
Yeah, hopefully we all do.
Right.
So you've scored massively important goals over the time. I look back as far as your winning goal against PSV for Ajax, 18 years of age, massive derby, massive game in Holland. How was that?
Yeah, it's you can compare those games, with the Liverpool, Manchester United, the Liverpool Evertons, the Ajax Feyenoord and other derbies in of course, other leagues. And if you are able to score, the winning goal, it's an undescribable moment for any player. They would tell you, and what can I say? It's a great feeling, obviously.
I've got some other winning goals.
Right.
Probably one of them's going to be, of course, my favourite. But the goal you scored against Arsenal when you brushed Seska's side.
Right.
I remember that. I was behind that. Yeah.
How old were you then?
Yeah, 2008. Yeah, so 17.
17. Wow. Yeah.
I sat in the stand behind the Upper Anfield Road, and I can remember you through thinking, "You've got to make it. You've got to make it." And then you buried it, and the ground went mad.
Yeah.
And you was calm.
Yeah. You know what? I realized when I was 19, 20, 21, I would always put a lot of thought in, like, okay, if I score today, how would I celebrate? And I had this whole idea of if I would score today, I would do, celebrate a certain way. But for some reason, I didn't do it. And you saw me think. I was thinking, and I was like, what should I do? And I don't know. I was so calm.
I seen you.
Yeah, it didn't make sense.
Yeah, you run over to the corner flag by the cop and clapped. And I was thinking, you've just put us through to the semi-final of the Champions League.
Yeah, no, it's, I remember it very well.
Brilliant. So the United winner, 77th minute. I think you came off the bench that game. Is that right? Off the bench.
Yes.
I'm not sure how you say it. We say kite. Their kite. How would you say that?
Well, in Holland we say kuit. And it's funny because kuit is also calf in Dutch. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So you would say in Dutch, you would say Derek Calf. Right? If you really translate it into English, so you would say kuit.
So he squares the ball to you.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine one thing's going through your mind. Describe that feeling when that ball hits the net.
Beforehand, it's Edwin van der Sar, so you have to be precise with the finishing. It's gonna be sloppy. And I remember receiving the ball, and it was not a straight ball over the field. It came with a bounce a little bit.
Yeah.
And that made me anxious for a slight moment, because if you are not concentrated well, often that players can smack it and it goes wide open. So I remember for a split second to try and smack the ball back towards the field so that it would stay low.
Yeah.
And if you can recall, the ball actually bounced back and it went up in the net. So I was lucky to hit it that way, and of course, beating a goalkeeper like Van der Sar, and obviously Dutchman. Yes, will definitely take it with my memories.
Definitely, because you had a little thing for Man United and Howard Webb.
Yeah.
Your Photoshop.
Yeah. It's
How do you look back at that?
Well,
we loved it.
Yeah, it's one of those moments you had no idea what the effect would have been afterwards, and still until this day, apparently I'm still in the books of the very first player being fined for social media purposes in the Premier League. And the game itself, I felt the referee did us wrong, and he had a lot of influence in us losing that game, and everyone was upset. And I was a very active Twitter user at that time, and I would sometimes express my feelings. And there was a lot of misunderstanding, because people thought that I photoshopped the photo myself, but I didn't do that. Yeah, it was already someone, I saw it floating online, and obviously a Liverpool fan made it, and I just simply copy and paste it, and instead of retweeting it, I posted it as a new tweet, right?
So it's yours, in fact.
Yeah, and yeah, you know, straight away the tweet went viral, and yeah, crazy. You know, I remember the attorney from Liverpool who told me that the FA had reached out and said that I should be punished, and they had no idea what the punishment was yet. So a week later, I had to now drive to London with the attorney from Liverpool and go into yeah, I think it's the building of the FA. It seemed like a courthouse almost.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to go into these. I had to sit in a space, and then they would came from the back doors, same like a court, and then you had 4 men sitting at the table, and I had to sit across them like I was guilty, you know, and I had to sit there, and then they would tell me it was a very short meeting, you know, and they would say like, yeah, you know, we had to discuss very hard and long because it never happened before, and you know there are no rules officially, and you know, after long discussions with everyone in the committee, we decided to fine you and make an example out of you because it's no good look if players start using social media to criticize referees and etc. etc. I was like, and then they were like, you'll be fined also £10,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god, like, okay, what can I say? You know, so it was definitely an experience and obviously a lesson. And yeah, you know, everyone was new to social media and even also players, you know. But it's funny because now if you actually sign for teams, they actually have rules and contracts now. Like,
Oh, do they?
yeah, and everywhere. If you embarrass the club, or if you put something that could, you know, harm the club, you can get fined. And there are all these like clauses and stuff that you have to now stick to, and you didn't have that in that time.
No, I mean, it was like you said, it was relatively new, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the social media thing.
Yeah.
I'd say 99.9% Liverpool fans would have agreed anyway.
Right.
Howard Webb was a Man United fan, and that's the end of it. I didn't really want to poke too much about it, but Benitez, obviously for us as Liverpool supporters, massive hero, done the unthinkable with what people would say was a half decent side.
Yeah.
Your relationship with Rafa, it seemed, I can't really put into words. Like, we all thought you should have been starting games. There's no question about that. Me, especially, because I was a massive fan growing up.
Right.
We were quite rigid. We were quite slow. But you had the legs and the pace. So why do you think you never started more games under Rafa?
You know, I have, of course, over the years, I've done and spoke a lot about Benitez. And I've always shared my honest opinion. You know, if people would ask me, like, let's say, just an open question, like, who are the managers that you don't like? I've worked with a lot of managers that I didn't like or felt like they were maybe not good or didn't do justice to the team or myself. But a question like that, for me, Benitez would always come number one, or is the first name that pops up. Only for and again, I want to make sure that, of course, I give him the respect that he deserves as the coach that he is. He was very good tactically. He was a good coach overall to make sure that we were able to win games. And like you said, he did the unthinkable. You know, he was able to manage at that time a team and, you know, win the Champions League. And if I recall, I think they didn't do so well in the league that season.
No.
If I remember. So, you know, it's an achievement. So if you now see the current managers, the modern managers like Klopp and then even, you know, a lot of other managers, how they are able to, you know, they are called managers, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a piece of art if you are able to manage players when they are not feeling in their best self, right? When they need confidence, when they need a little bit a hand on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Especially young players. And I always say, and it's the easiest example to make, is like we are not all born Lionel Messis who
Yeah.
are 17, 18 and straight away world class. There are talented players who sometimes need a few years before they actually have fulfilled their potential. And I feel like it's also partly a manager's responsibility, especially if you say that you have faith and believe in a player, then I feel like it's a manager's responsibility to help the player prospect. So I felt pretty alone from day one when I joined Liverpool. And bear in mind, I was 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time me living by myself. I came from my parents' home in a different country.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of challenges for me that I had to deal with at the same time. But at the same time also I had a price tag, obviously, as a young player, and the expectations. Like, I wasn't naive. I understood, like, hey, there's something expected from me. Liverpool paid, good price from me. So
Mm-hmm.
it was the pressure from that side, and at the same time trying to manage everything, and I didn't really feel the help, right?
Nice.
Now, mentally, I was strong enough to hold myself and try to adapt and learn, but I felt like, there were a lot of moments where I felt like he could have pushed me in the right direction. He didn't give me enough information to understand what is required for me to play in a team from Rafa Benitez. And what I remembered, he required defensive work more than really attacking football. So he would really judge you based on how good of defensive help are you to my team, because if you aren't, you're not a starter. And I was not really good at really, let's say, following my man or tracking back, because in Ajax I didn't need to so much.
Mm-hmm.
In Ajax they would tell you, hey, we need you up front, we have a left midfield play, we have the left full back, your defensive work is until halfway line, and when we have the ball, we play it to you and do your magic up front. So I came from that mentality into a 4-4-2 as a winger midfield player. Now you have to do more defensive work, right? So his main reason in the beginning was not playing me for that. His words were like, I can trust you, the team can trust you. Okay, that's a statement. So
Mm-hmm.
what can I do in order so that you are able to trust me again, right? And then he was like, yeah, you need to help defense. You need to do this. You're your fullback. You need to help your fullback. He gave me all those things that I didn't do. And I was like, okay. So I was now focusing on that. I was really in training. I was coming back. I was tackling. But now I wasted all my energy in defensive work, and I had no energy in showing in training what my qualities were. So I was still not getting a chance and was still not playing. And then I was the type of player, if I felt uncertainty, I would knock on his door, go in his office, and would ask. Because in Holland, it's okay to do. In Premier League, it's not, depending the coach, they're not always appreciate if you go into a manager's office. And Benitez at that time was a type of manager who didn't really appreciate a player coming constantly in his office asking, why am I not playing, or what's going on? And I went in his office again. I was like, hey, I've been working for the past few weeks really on defensive work. I noticed players were more pleased with me. I got these compliments from Carragher. I got these compliments from Stevie G. All these guys were complimenting me for my effort, but I didn't felt the reward back from the coach. So I went in and I was like, hey, what's going on? Why do I not now get more minutes? And then he was like, yeah, you're not delivering up front, and you're not. So it was like a ping pong thing. And obviously at that moment, football intelligence was also playing a lot for myself as a young player, as a 21-year-old. Because if you would, let's say, with the experience that I have now and the knowledge and understanding how you can intelligently play both sides of that game, I could easily do it because I've learned it afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But me at that moment, not really understanding and struggling a lot the system of 4-4-2, using a lot of energy tracking back, and then didn't have good legs enough to now also be dominant up front, because at the end they still expect me to score goals and deliver assists. that was my struggle at that time, and I had a hard time. Like it was not like in Holland you had the assistant coaches work with you extra, talking with you extra, individual training, and that wasn't there for the players who weren't playing a lot. If we wanted to stay outside to maybe do extra finishing, it wasn't allowed. They were like, no, inside. We don't want to risk injuries. So we were doing group training sessions, mostly tactic. You would not be match fit because you wouldn't play a lot of games, but you were also not able to train extra because they wouldn't risk injury. So it was very difficult for me. And then when I finally had to come in, or when I finally started a game, I didn't have the lungs anymore because I didn't play regularly. And the Premier League is very tough. So it was very difficult to really take my chance when he gave me a chance, for example, and yeah, I had to admit, it was not easy. It was very difficult. I was fighting a lot of challenges. And at the end of the day, I do agree with a lot of opinions from Liverpool fans, that I wasn't able to really 100% fulfill my potential. And I feel kind of disappointed about it. Because yes, did I had the talent? I would agree. But I would also say that I felt like I didn't have the proper guidance. And I think with the manager who was able to get it out of me, I think I could have maybe had a much better Liverpool career.
Yeah, me too, to be honest with you. And I'm no football expert, but I'm a Liverpool fan. And watching you out on the pitch, it got us off the edge of our seat. And we didn't have much of that. Because we, like I said, we were a rigid side and we sort of hit teams on the break type of thing.
Yeah.
But then if, like you're saying, if your legs aren't there because you're not getting the minutes and you practice more getting back than going forwards, it does seem as though your talent could have been exploited a little bit better than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess it's one of them. But like I said to you, I've got fond memories of you.
Thanks. Yeah. It's at the end, I had a lot of good memories too, and I'm very grateful because I only really realized for what type of club I've played as soon as I left.
Yeah.
And if I really realized where I was, I wouldn't have gave up so quickly. One of the reasons that I left was because I was still one of the regulars in the national team still at that time. Even though being young, I was always in the squad. Maybe not always a starter, but also I was part of the team. And at that time, the coach said, like, Ryan, look, your credits start drying up. You need to play more, otherwise I have to drop you. So I was now trying to find a desperate move to make sure that I would play regularly just to maintain national team. If I could do that over, I would have never done that.
Really?
I would have just stayed at Liverpool. I wouldn't mind being dropped for a while because I know if I would be able to maybe retrieve my career, because at that moment when I left, you had Kenny Dalglish coming in.
Yeah.
And before he left, he really told me, like, look, I understand you've been disappointed so much, but it's your decision. But if you end up staying, we're going to work with you. But at that moment, my head was like here because we had Roy Hodgson, who was, when he came in, he was promising me also a lot of play time. And at the end, he didn't end up playing me. So at that moment, I didn't believe nothing anymore, what was said to me. And I just like, I need to leave because national team is now at risk. And so that was one of my regrets afterwards, that if I could do that over, I would have not left Liverpool.
But on the other side of things, you've gone from Benitez, who's defensive, rigid, to Hodgson, defensive, rigid. It kind of been an exciting time to be an explosive striker like he was.
Right. No, for sure. And, as we all experienced, because, I maintained a Liverpool fan still until this day, and I followed the team very closely. It was, Liverpool was in a transition to rebuild, as obviously Torres had left the team. A lot of players from my time had left the team. Xabi Alonso went to Madrid, Arbeloa left not so long after. I think Pepe Reina was not the first keeper anymore. So, it was also not really easy for Kenny Dalglish to of course, be successful straight away. And of course, we can debate with the signings that came after, whether they were, the right Liverpool players. But yeah, Liverpool went through a few years of trying to figure out where they wanted to go. And that's football sometimes, teams go through that. And you see that now with Manchester United already for a long time. They've been at the top at my time, they've been there constantly, with the Ronaldos and the Rooneys. And now they go into a time where they have to find the right pieces again. It's football sometimes.
And do you think, obviously, you've seen the form that we're in at the moment? It's not the best. I think it will get there. But in terms of Virgil, how do you find his form? And do you see him 10 this round? Because he's the best centre-half in the world, so it's going to happen.
Yeah, of course. Look, we don't have to question Virgil's qualities, and he's still, of course, an exceptional defender. Football sometimes, football remains a team sport. And if your other colleagues also are not able to, let's say, reach the level, it can influence your own game also, right? It's clear that the Liverpool team overall now struggles a bit. I do still believe they can turn around, whether it's on time to still compete for the championship. That's a question mark. But I do still believe that they are able and have the experience enough to find confidence back. If you realize it's a team that has been together for quite some time, maybe 1-2 players that came in and went out. Other teams are not stupid. They're adapting. They kind of know how Liverpool plays and how to defend them. So, they have to try and rebrand, after a few good years, they have to try to rebrand. And sometimes it's maybe by signing different players. Sometimes it's maybe by putting different players in the starting 11. At the end, Jurgen Klopp would probably have better answers and know how to do that. And we as fans, we have to, keep supporting them. And I guess, even though I know and understand probably a lot of Liverpool supporters are frustrated, which is understandable, but Liverpool is always known for being this great, supporters team. So, they have to stick to the team and things will definitely get better.
But just while we're on that subject, I seen when Ginny left, he mentioned that he had quite a little bit of stick on social media about contracts, things and that. Yeah. But I think if I had a message for any Liverpool player who uses social media, it's don't believe social media, because the Liverpool fans who put the bums on the seats and put the money into the club, they're the ones whose opinions who mean and matter most. He put a bad name for us, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of those things, social media made it's very accessible now, of course, to closer to players, which we didn't have back in the days. And people sometimes forget, football players are also human beings.
Exactly.
We have feelings, we have emotions. We like, just us earning great wages doesn't make us emotional less or robots. And this is one of those things. I've obviously been on the other side, and sometimes I see what people say, like, it's like what has been said to LeBron once, like, shut up and just dribble. Like, people feel entitled to that type of approach to football players. And I've been always a player who have been responsive for, came up for myself if I felt I needed to. Was not always the smartest thing to do, because it got me also in trouble later on in different areas of my career, where I have had, a kind of like thing with fans online.
Yeah.
And then, people would then always use like, oh, but you're a professional player, so you should stay above it, and you should be a professional. And listen, we are human beings. Also make mistakes. We have emotions. And it's very tricky. I understand fans also. But I would love to see that hopefully get more hand in hand, I feel like you can achieve way more if even in difficult times you try and stay positive.
Ryan, I won't keep you any longer, but what I'd like to say is thanks for getting back to me, getting back in touch, and really helping me with the pod. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Really enjoyed watching you for Liverpool Netherlands. Not so much when you moved on because you went a red.
Yeah.
But no, it's all jokes. But
Thank you.
Thanks very much, and I wish you the best of luck with your team.
Thank you. Good luck with the podcast, and I will keep following you.
Thank you. Speak soon.
All right, Lynn.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks to everyone for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to follow our social media, twitter.com/theroadendpod, and also our Instagram page, instagram.com/theroadendpod.